We could argue which conference is king on the field. The Big Ten has, of course, hoisted the national championship trophy 2 consecutive seasons. The SEC still has the best record on the field non-conference. But when it comes to media days, well, the Big Ten's going out to Vegas next week, and we will see what that's all about and how grandiose that is. But pretty much the SEC still rules the off-season talking season still belongs to the SEC. 4 days for the SEC. This is day 3 of 4 in Atlanta. We will break it down here for the next 60 or so here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by. Of course, for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. You know, when it causes me to rearrange the helmets on the shelf, you know it's big, and you know that we are focused here. Before we get rolling with a couple good guests, and we want to take your calls as well. Disputed National Champions is the book. So again, Disputed National Champions, a historical reset of the 1990s, which I believe is the most impactful in the history of college football in terms of determining a national champion and where we stand right now in 2025 with our second year of a 12-team college football playoff. We will discuss the role of the SEC and all of that. We welcome in everyone who is here thus far, which is a lot of Tukey G, and good to see Tim. Tim, I take it from that comment that you will be in Vegas next week. I was planning on going to Vegas next week for the Big Ten Media Days, but we will be represented here at the Voice of College Football by others. So unfortunately, Tim, we will not be able to meet, but have a good time out there. Let's roll back into SEC talk. We got Chris Phillips here, of course, from SEC Unfiltered. And Chris, it's great to see you. Appreciate you being here, man.
What's going on, man? Can you hear me okay? See me okay? I know the Wi-Fi has been a little bit shoddy since we got here. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, it's great to be here, man.
Far.
Yeah, Mark, I appreciate you having me, man. It's been a great experience. I mean, this is always exciting, the unofficial kickoff of the season, and we've been counting down certainly for the last few months. So, yeah, excited to chat with you about it. A lot of great coaches, a lot of great players, and favorite part of the event's always linking up with so many familiar faces that we get to interact with and do great work with, man. So appreciate you having me.
And if I'm not mistaken, this is the second appearance for SEC Unfiltered and yourself there at the SEC Media Days. So it goes to show you the growth of what you're building.
Yeah, and it's cool. I've been able to bring my guys, Dave Shoemate and Cole Thompson, who spearhead our college football, SEC football, I should say, coverage as well. So, I told somebody earlier today, Mark, I used to fight just to get myself here, and it took quite a while, but we did it. And so now to have the opportunity to bring my guys with me too is a really rewarding experience. And yeah, we're having a lot of fun, man. So yeah, it's pretty cool. The journey is certainly rewarding.
Chris, before we get your response on today's festivities, I want to take you back 2 days because, of course, this commissioner, unlike any other commissioner, sets the tone of this league, and he might be the face of college football at this point. But in previous years, it was more just boasting about the SEC and the SEC accomplishments and all of that. But now with the changing scope of, the SEC in a sense, along with the Big Ten taking over the sport from the NCAA, it's more about what are we going to do? How are we going to drive this sport? And it's very much almost, a State of the Union speech from this guy at this point.
Yeah, and there wasn't a ton I thought from Sankey. I thought the biggest takeaway obviously was the pushback on the 8-game versus 9-game conference schedule. Sankey it seems like he's pretty firm on staying with 8 games. I don't think it's just Sankey though. I think it's the presidents, it's the coaches, it's people behind the scenes as well that I don't think many in the SEC are in favor of that 9-game conference schedule. And certainly we just got news today that the playoff format that the Big Ten wants, it's essentially going to be a fight between the SEC and the Big Ten in regards to the scheduling and the conference schedules or what have you. So I thought that was the big takeaway. Outside of that, I thought Sankey was pretty close to the vest. He's got an opportunity with his platform to go up there and kind of deliver, like you said, the State of the Union speech. And I don't know if it's just because we're just in such a time of uncertainty or unknowns that there's not a lot that he can really say. It's pretty much status quo from Greg Sankey, at least here of late. I didn't think there was anything that was really earth-shattering that he mentioned. Mentioning college sports is strained, it's not broken. There was a lot of those kind of more vague statements. So I was hoping for a little bit more, but certainly I'm very intrigued what's going to happen with the conference schedules. There's pressure from outside sources, Big Ten included, to go to that 9 game conference schedule. I just don't think many folks in the SEC really want that.
We both know what the deal is. We try to weed through the 90% of coach speak and player speak to get to something that's actually meaningful or funny or something off the cuff.
Mhm.
And the first thing that came to mind for me, and I want you to fill in the blanks of anything else that you've come across that's been kind of bizarre or interesting or funny, was the Hugh Freeze golf game, coming to the
Yeah.
forefront and Lane Kiffin taking a shot at that.
I was surprised how long it took for Hugh to get a question about his golf game. I was telling somebody that if I was Hugh, I would have walked up to the podium with putter in hand or kind of been off to the side practicing my golf swing as a joke. I don't think Auburn fans would have found that very funny. That's probably what I would have done, just to lighten the mood a little bit. But he did get the question, about, is he tired of answering questions about his golf game? And I thought he answered it as well as he could, right? That it's, he loves to golf. It's a hobby of his. Heck, I'm a golfer myself, Mark, so I get it. But he mentioned it's not going to hold him back when it comes to building up the Auburn program. And I mean, I thought Hugh Freeze, the most notable thing from him is he's leaning into the expectations. I really thought all four of those coaches yesterday are leaning into the expectations. I thought Hugh was really confident. And I understand why. Like when you really start to look at their roster, I'm a bit skeptical because of what's happened the last 2 years and especially last year. And I understand the limitations Peyton Thorne had, but it should have been a much better team, obviously, Mark, than it was. But you can start to really fall in love with this Auburn roster, just the personnel, right? When you talk about the additions they made over the offseason, obviously starting at quarterback position with Jackson Arnold, adding Eric Singleton to the wide receiver room to assist Cam Coleman, some of the defensive pieces they have and what they've done under DJ Durkin defensively. So I thought Hugh was really confident. I think he should be confident. It's just, are they going to now take it to the field and finally translate and take that next step? Or is it going to be more of the same what we saw last year and Hugh Freeze get the axe? So I thought that was interesting. You're right, Mark. When it comes to this event, I've kind of learned that everybody's so buttoned up now. There's not any Steve Spurriers left, or there's a bunch of zingers out there, and you're getting a bunch of quotes and clips because everybody knows it's going to be clipped if you say something kind of off the cuff. So, um, we had Kalen DeBoer this morning. It's always interesting to hear him speak. Reaffirm Ty Simpson is going to be or would be the guy today if they were to play a game. I thought he sounded really confident, felt good about his team. I mean, most everyone's put on a really positive front about their group. But, back to Hugh Freeze, like you mentioned, and I think the two that I mentioned, the one that just ended, Brent Venables, I think it's either going to be probably Auburn or Oklahoma that pops this year as kind of that surprise team. And I thought Venables, yet again, another one he understands, right? It's a big year for his job and it's a big year just for Oklahoma football and getting back on a positive trajectory. And certainly with what they added, it's kind of a similar situation, I feel like, to Auburn. There's reasons when you look at the roster to be optimistic. But, yeah, the Hugh Freeze golf thing was funny, and Lane Kiffin certainly he never ceases to bring the laughs when he said that he and Hugh are buddies. But he said, "I see coaches doing well in his golf games. That's good for him." So, I mean, yeah, it's been a fun week. It's been a fun week. You're able to take away a little bit here and there, but it's been pretty tame, I think, for the most part.
Chris Phillips here from SEC Unfiltered. You've got all the information right there on the banner to check out Chris on X as well as SEC Unfiltered. Again, it will be worth your time, folks. So do it. We'll stick to today's menu. And Billy Napier, of course, man, he, this has to be the guy that was, of course, the Walking Dead at one point, and he's got a second birth here and a rebirth, and he feels really good about his program.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, I think this time last year we were just all kind of, it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when he was going to get canned, and it looked that way early in the season, especially after that loss to Texas A&M. I was at that season opener against Miami down there in Gainesville when they just got shellacked, and it felt all but certain he was gone. But give him a lot of credit. I mean, found something late in the season, and that something obviously was sparked by DJ Lagway, who was here at SEC Media Days today. And again, they're really confident. People asked them about the schedule. Heck, Billy had the tweet yesterday about they posted the toughest scheduled and Florida was one, and Billy Napier quoted it and just said, "Spot the ball," and I think that's kind of their mentality. Like, let's spot the ball. Like, they got to play us. DJ Lagway said today, hey, they got to play the Florida Gators. So I thought that was really, really interesting. I thought Billy made a good point too. Yes, their schedule is a gauntlet. Don't get me wrong, but he's right. This is talking season. This is hype season. Is everybody on their schedule going to live up to some crazy expectations they've set of preseason rankings? We know the answer is no. And I think you saw that last year. Like, Mark, if I'd have told you that, Florida would have beaten Ole Miss, LSU, Florida State, nobody would have believed you, right? We just kind of chalk those up as automatic losses. So you never know how it's going to play out. But, he mentioned this is the best roster he's had since he's been in Gainesville. It would make sense, obviously, with, the way they've recruited, what they've had in the portal, and just the overall progression, right? The development of that team. So, yeah, I mean, again, it was another. And here's the thing, again, Mark, if you're coming to the podium here and you're giving off vibes of uncertainty and you're down on your club, I mean, we've seen some coaches do that in the past, but that's just kind of how they were wired. This is the time, right, to sell your program, sell your team going into the season. I thought Billy did that. I thought he seemed really, really confident. And again, when you got a guy like DJ Lagway, who was with them today, spearheading that, and a defensive front like they've got, and some pieces on the offensive side, I think they should be excited about. They should be very excited going in the season.
So you hit on Freeze and Venables. They've got to be two of the guys that have to come through this year. But Kalen DeBoer, he's not going anywhere, but 9-4 at Alabama. And they've got a loaded roster, but this quarterback decision is going to be huge. And you say it's most likely going to be Ty Simpson, and that's the conventional thought. But you just any further thoughts about Kalen DeBoer gearing up for this one?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say this: I'm high on Alabama. Like, they're a playoff pick for me. I think they're an SEC title game pick for me. The quarterback's the pick to click for them, obviously, and if they get just average to slightly above average play from Ty Simpson, I think they're going to be a real force to be reckoned with. Double-digit wins again. I think they will be in Atlanta. The roster's loaded. I mean, I don't know if there's a coach in this conference, if you gave him true serum, that wouldn't trade their roster with Alabama's going into the season. Like, they're that good across the board. So, again, nothing really. I thought DeBoer was as buttoned up as anybody. I think he was asked the question about upholding the Alabama standard, and I think that was one that he, was. I thought he answered as well as he possibly could. I think he kind of stumbled over it first because it's kind of a loaded question a little bit, but said, "Listen, we didn't make the playoff. It wasn't good enough." And I think at Alabama, that's a place. There's a couple of schools, Mark, in the SEC. They expect to make the playoff every single year, and Alabama is one of them. So he understands the expectations. I was actually hoping to get a question in. I was not able to in the big room where, just simply asking about, hey, you've learned about this fan base and the expectations and the pressure that comes with it. How are you more equipped to deal with that in year two versus coming in kind of blind in year one? But I mean, you learn very quickly being the head coach of the Crimson Tide. You learn very quickly being in the city of Tuscaloosa. I think he gets that. So nothing really outrageous that stood out, but I will say the quotes from the players were most notable, Mark, responding to Tommy Castellanos's quote from Florida State over the offseason saying that, there's no fear in Bama anymore without Nick Saban. And it was Deontay Lawson and Tim Keenan that essentially said, the disrespect will be handled accordingly, which I thought was a savage line from both. So that season opener in Tallahassee's got even a little more juice than I think we expected.
That's nice. Before we let you go, Chris, you just mentioned a couple players. Any other players that were in particular impressive to you?
Well, I mean, I think you got to start with Arch Manning, and he's not a guy that's going to light up he's not going to fill up the quote machine, but that's why to me he was so impressive. I mean, for a guy to handle the hoopla, I mean, it was truly Arch Manning mania here, Mark. Like, I mean, there were people, I'm sure you saw this on social media, there were people literally lining up at the breakaway spots where the players go, which is in the main media room where the coach is speaking, while Steve Sarkisian's at the podium. I've never seen that in my entire life. It's been a long time since we've had a guy like this that moves the needle for so many obvious reasons. Started quarterback at Texas, extremely talented guy. And oh, by the way, his last name is Manning. So I just think the way he handles that, I'm so impressed, like how humble he is. That's really what jumps off the page. He is just how humble of a dude he is. Outside of that, I'm trying to think. It's been a long week. Everyone else for the most part has been. I mean, DJ Lagway today, John Mateer today, I thought was really impressive. And the other thing I did want to mention, it's not a player, Mark, but we didn't touch on it. I did think it was interesting to hear Josh Heupel say it's an open quarterback competition going into the fall. I caught a lot of flack when I dropped my quarterback rankings. I had Joey Aguilar 16th, and I essentially said I wasn't even sure he was going to be the starter come game one, and he very well may still be. But to hear Josh Heupel just say, "Hey, it's kind of a wide open competition. We're going in the fall, and we've got Joey Aguilar, we've got Jake Merklinger, some of these other guys." That definitely caught my attention to hear him say that. So, but yeah, I mean, all these players have been impressive. They're all, I mean, Mark, they're all so well trained. I mean, you're not going to have many guys go out there and say anything that's, even a Diego Papia. I thought he was confident, but he wasn't. His trash talk was more directed around Vandy and what they can control. Like, we want to go win a national championship, right? Like, it wasn't. I thought you might hear some zingers from him towards Alabama or towards Auburn. He was asked about Hugh Freeze. He was asked about those games, and he was very calm, cool, collected. And again, I'm sure he's been schooled to be so. So I thought he was impressive as well. But yeah, I mean, they've all been awesome. The coaches have been great. A lot of little tidbits and nuggets, but like you said earlier, Mark, you don't want to overread into things because the games aren't being won and lost right now. That's for sure.
And you mentioned being schooled. I guess we shouldn't be surprised that Arch Manning's as well schooled on the field as he is, considering his two uncles. And then if he learns all the way through this thing, he may still be in the limelight in 30 years like his uncle.
Yeah, and I mean he's built for this. I mean he's been gearing up for this, I think, his entire life. And again, he's almost humble, like not too humble, but I'm amazed how humble he is. It's like there's just maybe behind closed doors there's some ego there, and I'm sure he has supreme confidence, but he is so just, I've earned nothing. I don't know where they get this idea that I'm going to compete for the Heisman. Like I've done absolutely nothing. I'm like, hey, it's okay to be a little, just confident, but he's, I respect it. I mean, listen, there's two types of people in this game and in life, those who are humbled and those who are about to be. And obviously Arch has been taught that at a very young age, and he reflects that.
SEC Unfiltered, folks. Believe me, it is a platform like none other when it comes to the SEC. Chris, we appreciate you being here, man.
Mark, always a pleasure, man. Anytime. Really excited to be talking college football with you again. Let's definitely do it again soon.
Absolutely. Enjoy the stay, Chris. We'll see you. All right. Yeah, Chris Phillips been joining our show for several years at this point, and he is in Atlanta. We've got Stephen M. Smith from the Bama Standard standing by here in a few minutes. I'm going to drop this link if anybody wants to talk some college football with me. In the meantime, we don't have to talk about the SEC. It would actually be a little bit of a break, a little bit of a breather if we did not talk about the SEC for the next few minutes. But whatever your choice, there is the call-in line. And yeah, I did want to catch up with the chat here because, again, I was in the middle of communicating here with Tim. And it sounds like Tim is headed to Vegas for, yes, the Big Ten Media Days are next week. So we will have, representing us, Minnie Hunt will be out at Big Ten Media Days in Vegas. I'm going to stay home. All right. On the phone lines, we've got DeReal MVP showing up for us. DeReal,
hey, Mark, how are you doing this evening?
Doing well.
That's good to hear. Well, Mark, I saw Brett McMurphy just posted about an hour ago, I'd say now, that it seems like the playoffs are going to stay at this 12-team format we got going in next year because the SEC and Big Ten can't agree on anything. Their key issue is the SEC wants to stay at 8 conference games. The Big Ten wants to make them to 9 conference games. So we're just staying at the same model.
Well, my first reaction to that is I have no issue with any of us saying, hey, we would like a more uniform format and approach. So everybody play 9 conference games. But let's understand, I will take the SEC up on this one, that the Big Ten has no right to be trying to force the SEC to be playing 9 conference games. There is no commissioner. There is no governing body that can force any conference to do anything. Each conference runs itself. So I'm not understanding the Big Ten, if I'm hearing this correctly, trying to force the SEC to play 9 conference games. They can suggest, they can try to move them in that direction. They can try to, have that discussion, but trying to force them to play 9 conference games is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, well, they're holding the playoff hostage by that's their leverage over the SEC, and they're forcing them to move it. They're not going to actually implement it, but that's their way of trying to implement it. I think the reason the Big Ten is doing it is because they believe you are what your record says you are, and that the SEC gets more wins because they're playing these FCS cupcakes opponent. They play one more, and therefore they would get more teams artificially into the playoffs. Now, I don't believe in that narrative, but I think the Big Ten does, and that's why they want the SEC to go to non-conference games.
Well, I don't believe in either narrative completely. I think there is truth in both. So the Big Ten plays, just to get everyone on the same page here, with 9 games, and the SEC with 8 games. Therefore, if you do the math, if you get a 16-team league like you do in the SEC, if you're going to add a conference game, then you obviously, every game has a winner and a loser. So your teams are going to go 8-8 in those games. And we're assuming that those are going to replace the Citadel type matchups, the scrimmage games in November, in which the SEC goes either 15-1 if Vandy happens to lose a game, and that's going to be inconsequential anyway when they've lost to the Georgia States of the world. Usually 16-0 is going to be the outcome. So there are going to be 8 more losses tacked on to SEC teams' records. So I understand where the Big Ten and the rest of college football stands on this topic. But there's no, and the SEC or the Big Ten can take this stance and hold the college football playoff hostage. I get it, but what I would want to do, and I actually was thinking of this yesterday, was to get, because you get the SEC fans that argue that the conference is so difficult playing the 8 conference games, that balances out the scheduling factor, and then you get the Big Ten fans that will say, hey, we play 9 conference games. Therefore, basically what you're doing, in the way that I thought of this, to match this up and give some kind of clarity to this, is basically the Big Ten is playing itself one more week. So you just line up all those teams, Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, however you think the hierarchy ranks, to the bottom. And those are the games that the Big Ten is playing as a non-conference game of sorts. And then you take all the other non-conference games that the Big Ten plays that are the better non-conference games, and you match them up against the SEC's non-conference games, and you make a comparison of who is playing the tougher extra game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying, and I'll use extremes for the SEC to favor them, is Georgia is having, or LSU is playing Clemson while Indiana's playing nobody, as an example of what you're talking about, correct?
Well, yes. So Indiana plays 9 conference games, LSU plays 8, and then LSU goes and plays Clemson. Or last year, they went and played USC and UCLA. But in this particular season, yes, Clemson is the addition. And so you're matching up Indiana's Big Ten schedule against LSU's SEC schedule plus Clemson. And that's the comparison.
Right. And I think this is a key disputed thing that people aren't talking about, is it's done by teams getting into the playoffs, not conferences. So it should be done by a case-by-case basis. If you have an SEC team that plays nobody or nobody decent within their out-of-conference games, then they should be dinged for them non-scheduling out and competitively. But there is a rule in the SEC. You have to play a Power 4 opponent. And most of the times, these teams go out and schedule decently projected Power 4 opponents. Like Alabama's out there scheduling. They played Wisconsin last year. They're playing them this year. They're playing Ohio State. So I think it needs to be more of a individual team-by-team basis, and I think intent to schedule needs to be factored in going forward as well. Like, I'm not sure if you saw Indiana next year is canceling their series. The playoff committee should already ding Indiana if they're on the bubble, because they've chosen to make their path easier.
Yes, if you cannot, and it's so ridiculous. It's not like Indiana had scheduled a home and home with Clemson. You know, it's Virginia. If you cannot handle a home and home series with Virginia, and you think that that's going to impact your playoff resume, then you've got issues.
Absolutely, and the committee needs to take these things into account. I don't care if it's not on the field of qualification. It does say something about the university that they're not willing to go out there and give us more data points, and these universities need to be punished for that. Final thing, Mark, I'll ask you about is I'm not sure if you saw the rumors Nick Saban might get back into college football as a coach. Why? Why would he do this? Like, I feel like he's got nothing to gain and lots to lose by doing this move.
I don't agree necessarily with that statement. I get it that he cannot add to his legacy. Well, if he went, yes, and won a national championship, it would be remarkable. But most likely he's not going to add to his legacy, but I don't think he can detract from it. To me, if Nick Saban shows up at pick the school, we were actually conjecturing, could it be USC? Could it be LSU? He made the comment a few months ago that he should have never left LSU. So if Brian Kelly is kicked out the door, maybe he goes back to LSU. And let's say he goes 7-5 for 2 years, and then he decides, okay, I lost my fastball, and he moves on. I don't think that would take away from his legacy, not at least in my book.
What I meant by negative side isn't like he's going to be trash, but Nick Saban doesn't have any real blemishes on his legacy right now.
True.
But let's say he goes to a school and he goes 6-6 for a few years or goes sub 500. It would give somebody else a potential of catching and passing Nick Saban, realistically. If they have a great all-time career and they finish strong, that's the only thing I'm talking about. It's very minute. It's like Bill Belichick after Tom Brady left. He's obviously the greatest coach of all time, but he had those final few years where he was like, he wasn't that good.
I don't know if Bill Belichick is obviously the greatest coach of all time, but I get your point.
Most people consider him the GOAT coach.
Yeah. So, yeah, I liken it to, I don't know how many baseball fans we have here. If you take an all-time great baseball player and they play way past their prime, let's say they play 3 years in which they hit 220, but we know that at their peak, they are an all-time great. Now, they're bringing down their all-time average, batting average, but we know that that's not who they are.
Absolutely. I'm not saying it as disrespect towards Saban or disrespect toward the coach. All I'm saying is, if you look at it in terms of pros and cons, there's more negatives that could happen by him entering.
Sure. Yes, I agree. Absolutely. DeReal, love talking to you. We've got 3 other callers behind you, though.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, Mark.
Thanks, DeReal. And the only reason I would kick anyone off here is because we got Stephen M. Smith of the Bama Standard, who is going to join us at approximately 4:30. And I actually thought one of these calls was coming in from him. So we got Mr. Tim Prangley stopping by. Look at this. This is quite the honor. Tim, how you doing?
I've been in your chat every single day, so I don't know about honor. Just I wanted to catch up with DeReal because we have our lovely conversations all the time.
Oh, so you wanted DeReal to I take one call at a time. I'm not into these like
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he's gonna respond in the chat. I know he won't agree. I'm doing great. You look great. How you doing?
I look great. Wow, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, you look very you look a lot more colorful than you used to look when you were in Ohio. It seems like you're getting outside, doing a lot more. I think these days, Mark, living in
I am able to get outside. Although this time of year, like I get outside less. I wait until evening time to get outside. But you are right. It's nice to be that there are no days unless it rains, obviously, that are off the middle of January. Great, I'm outside. Yes, absolutely, love it.
But going to the Big Ten SEC hang up, hold up here, 9 games versus 8 games. You've always made the great point about just they're going to get half their teams are going to get a loss that they wouldn't have gotten lost if they played that game. But to me, it's not about the wins and losses. Let's face it, if you're in the Big Ten or the SEC and you have a solid year, that's the only place where you might actually get a 9-3 team scraping in somehow if they played a quality schedule. My point with football, and I've said this for years, is it's a bang up sport. It's attrition. You get the crap kicked out of you. So if you get a bye, you get to play like a Charleston Southern, or you get to play some, like you said, Citadel in, let's say, week 11, you get to rest everyone up, get ready for your rivalry game, get ready for maybe any postseason stuff going on.
Yeah.
It's just a time to get healthy. And the converse of the other side of that is it's one less game where you're going to get a guy's knee taken out or a hamstring, late in the season in game 11 because you're up 43-7.
You're right.
So that advantage is, I think, always completely understated. It's a sport of attrition.
It's almost, sorry to interrupt, it's almost the best of both worlds. You get a very competitive scrimmage is what you get.
Right. And just like a scrimmage.
You get to stay sharp because it's a competitive game in front of 80,000 people, but you can pull the starters at halftime and play that kind of game. Yeah.
And it's just, and the showing, I mean, then you go to the gamesmanship. You get to hide, that late in the season, you're not really hiding playbook stuff, but you're also preparing for your rival. It gives you the extra week to look forward to on top of that. So,
So I am fully on board with you when it comes to the injury factor, but in regards to preparing for the next game, the SEC has done a nice job they give those scrimmage weeks to the rivals at the same time. So they make sure Alabama is well rested and Auburn. They don't give an advantage there.
Well, I mean, or you could be like a Georgia and you're get a 2-game bye when you play Georgia Tech. Sorry, Rambling Wreck fans out there, but yeah, it's not all. Again, you're still in the Iron Bowl. That's not across the board in the SEC. Let's put it that way. The Egg Bowl is not exactly something people are really worried about. As far as the competition level, I would say.
You're bringing to light the SEC teams that play ACC rivals at the end of the year, and you're completely right. But if you notice, the ACC has countered that by doing the same thing.
I'm just talking about in general, keeping teams healthy, getting that extra break to look forward to things. And it just feels like the bigger picture. I'm talking not exactly the next game. I'm saying looking forward on the season, preparing for other opponents. You don't always opponent. You could go after and schedule and work towards another opponent that's down the road as well. You can start installing stuff. You can use it as an install week in a week 11, where usually if you're in the middle of if you're in the Big Ten, you're right in the middle of conference play. You're not going to install new concepts, new stuff into your defense. You're not be able to make adjustments but you would be able to if you're looking at 2 cakewalks to end your season. That's all I'm saying. It's an added bonus.
And you're hitting on the same reason why I don't like buys in the playoffs, is because unless, like the NFL, you can come up with a ironclad difference maker to substantiate a buy that a team truly earned a buy, the issue is that the team that gets to sit for 2 or 3 weeks can scout the 2 teams that have to play and focus on each other and don't have the luxury of being able to scout.
Mm-hmm. That just rips open a wound for me, Mark. I just think USC, if you were to get USC back in the Pete Carroll days, you had to get them in week 2, 3, 4. Once in a while, you had that UCLA loss that was late in the season. But generally, you had to get them early. Usually it was SC's like maybe road conference opener where they just some reason would just lose a game. But late in the season, Pete Carroll always has his dudes ready. I can't imagine what Pete Carroll would do. Because, think about Big Ten, you guys. How did USC? Did USC usually have? Did Pete Carroll have his team ready for bowl games at the end of the year? I'm saying give Pete Carroll a bye week and then extra time to get ready for a playoff team. I don't know, man. I would have loved seeing that late season coaching. I don't remember seeing many people, if anyone, better than Pete Carroll getting a team ready for the postseason.
I have little doubt that USC would have benefited from a 4-team playoff more than any school in the country.
I mean, you still got to play the games, but yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think that they would have played well. Going back to what we just said, depth. I mean, the game of attrition, when you had all that talent and where you're deep at all of them, especially on the defensive line, offensive line, like those Carroll teams were until probably about 2009, 2010. That's a distinct advantage going back to the attrition part of it. But yeah, I mean, I honestly think that USC would have done, my guess would conservatively be that SC would have won 3 natties during that decade with Carroll if there had been a playoff. There's no way to know that, but I'm just saying that the losses that they had and how they played in the postseason, I mean, they didn't usually win their bowl game. They usually won pretty handily in the postseason, and against good teams, against conference champions.
Absolutely. And anytime I shoot you down in the chat, that's the only point I'm making, is that we don't know. I'm not saying you're not making a reasonable point that is probably about 90% true. I'm just saying we don't know. But yes, they smashed Michigan by 2 touchdowns twice. Obviously, Illinois was one of the most lopsided BCS bowl games we've ever seen. They took care of an excellent Penn State team, much greater than what the final score indicated. You know the deal. I don't have to run through the results. But after the Texas loss, 06, 7, and 8, what great college football we missed by USC not playing in some kind of playoff or in the national championship game in 06, 7, and 8.
There were a lot of teams that, I mean, like, I'm gonna start doing the Reddit / S for sarcasm. I think I did it in this chat again, because sometimes people think it take me totally serious. When I say we're gonna smash LSU, if you saw my face or heard my voice, you know I'm putting on the fan hat and going at it. You know, I mean, there is no way to tell. I mean, again, ask USC about playing Washington State up in the Palouse. You know, we thought we were going to kill them, and we probably should have. But you know, that's why you play football. It's not a round ball, and it bounces funny sometimes. So yeah, that's why you got to play the games. You know.
So did I guess correctly that you are going to Big Ten Media Days?
Yeah, I'm all set. I'm all set to go. It'll be my first media day event. I didn't go last year, but because I was out in the Midwest. Yeah, in Indianapolis. I thought Indianapolis on August. I mean, if I'm going to the Midwest and that time of year, I'm going, you know, water skiing at the lake with my cousins. I'm not going to be in Indianapolis. If I'm going to go all the way out there in the middle of summer, it's going to be Michigan and water skiing. But yeah, this one's a little bit easier for me. It's a nice little 5-hour drive down the freeway. Get on out there on the 15 and enjoy a couple days with my friends and check out media days. Yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested to see the whole dynamic. Although it would have been really cool to see it in Lucas Oil. I mean, I think that I remember when you went and I saw you asking a question. I thought it was a pretty good venue for that, but it'll be interesting to see how this thing gets pulled off.
They're going to be at the football stadium, correct?
It's at Allegiant. I don't even know. I got the. I got to look at my email. Yeah. All I know is where I'm staying and when I'm getting there. I don't know much about other than that.
Yeah. You're actually reminding me that I've got to cancel my hotel reservations because I made those.
Oh man, Mark, see this. I was actually going to meet you in person, and now you put it up there. I'm not sure if you might be a bot. You might be a Google generated bot for all I know at this point.
Well, with what AI is capable of doing, you don't know. The only thing that you can rest on is that I've been around doing this for how long? Otherwise, you might think that, you know.
I got into a little bit with I can't remember what it was. It was obviously one of the Buckeye fans in the chat. But how confident are you about the they were kind of downplaying, like they said Chip Kelly's not going to be a loss for this Ohio State team, and to me that didn't make a heck of a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. They tried to fortify or supplement the Brian Hartline elevation by bringing in Virginia Tech's former offensive coordinator to be kind of like a support, Ryan Bowen, but obviously he's not got the track record of a Chip Kelly. Yeah, I think that's a loss.
Sure. What makes you confident about the Bowen hire? Are you confident about it? Is there some what would give you if you're if you were to put on a Buckeye hat, what would give you what would give you confidence in him calling plays?
So my confidence isn't so much about Ryan Bowen. It's that, okay, they got to a point with Brian Hartline that they couldn't continue to just keep him at this place of, being a wide receivers coach. He was just achieving too much and they were going to lose him. So they just had to reward him. And he probably was ready, or so they think, to be the offensive coordinator. But they did a smart thing in supplementing that by going to get an experienced offensive coordinator to not be the offensive coordinator. He's going to be the offensive line coach, the guy coming in from Virginia Tech. But he's going to be able to work with Brian Hartline. Then you also have, it's almost similar to the USC situation, if Lincoln Riley would ever give up those duties, is that Ryan Day he's one of the best in the business. So they're going to be able to surround Hartline with a lot of brain trust.
That was my follow-up. How much on Saturdays? It's third and 9 late in the fourth quarter. How many of those calls are going to be Ryan Day and how many of those calls are going to be Hartline? Because I will tell you, it didn't work out well for USC. And I know that T. Martin did not have the length of time and over time also proving just ability to bring in guys. But in his short time at USC, he brought in some pretty amazing wide receivers that played in the NFL for a long time as well, kind of along the lines of Brian Hartline. Obviously, they had to hold on to Brian Hartline with this title. Otherwise, he's going to go somewhere that we'll probably give it to him. But it didn't work out well for USC. And I genuinely do say, I hope it works out for you guys. But how often do you think on third and 8, 3rd and 9, 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, up by 3 or down by 3, that he's going to be making the calls, he being Ryan Day?
Well, you know that I don't know the answer, but my conjecture is, so there's no easing into this. They've got Texas in week 1. So Ryan Day doesn't even have the luxury of saying, okay, how did he look the first 2 weeks against Akron and Toledo? He doesn't have that luxury. So I'm sure they're talking through all those scenarios, obviously, leading into Texas. Now, what kind of rope is he going to have against Penn State and Michigan later in the season? It's going to be based on how he does earlier in the season. But week 1 against Texas, I don't know. I would think that Ryan Day has a lot of say. So, well, he obviously does, but he's going to take that advantage of his authority against Texas. I would bet, yes.
Yeah, and having that week 1 game, there's all off season to prepare for it. He's going to have his fingerprints all over the top of it. And like I said, when it comes down to it, he's going to be pulling the trigger on those. All right. Well, someone thinks that Hartline will say, I'm not saying he wouldn't. Isn't he an alumnus, or no? Am I wrong on that?
Yes. Oh yeah.
So yeah, of course he's going to want to stay, but Mark, what do you, do you think there is any way in hell that if he had been passed over for this opportunity to become the OC and they hired over him again, that there's no way they would lose Brian Hartline? And the way he does recruit, again, it'd be a massive hit to lose him. Someone made it seem like he wants to stay. I'm sure, all things being equal, he wants to stay, but there's also great coaches want to coach, and he's probably getting to an age now where he's like, well, look, I need to make this happen. No one wants to stay a wide receivers coach, no matter how overly compensated you are, because you're an amazing recruiter. These guys have a drive in them. They want to be the dude. That's how you become an athlete at the level, becoming a collegiate athlete, is because you want to be the guy. I think it might be a bit naive to think that he would have stayed no matter what, if they kept him at the wide receiver coach.
So yeah, I'm thinking the same thing, because unless we reviewed elevations across the country over the last 10 years, I'm almost positive that you don't gain the Ohio State offensive coordinator role with no experience. Therefore, under other circumstances, Ohio State is obviously hiring an experienced coordinator. They're going from one of the most experienced in the sport to the least experienced. But with all this surrounding him. So is Brian Hartline. If Brian Hartline was just performing his duties at a decent enough grade to keep his job, he's not getting elevated to offensive coordinator status. No, he's going to have to go to the G5 or go somewhere and prove himself first and then come back.
Yeah.
If he was not Brian Hartline.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought that comment. I get it. You know, I mean, I get it. All things being equal, but I think these guys, especially if you're as successful as he is, you're not just your average driven wide receiver. Just coach, just glad to be there. So, I mean, he might be a situation like USC, for instance. USC had Rocky Seto as their defensive coordinator. We knew it was Pete Carroll. I think this is gonna be the Seto situation for you guys, where there's a guy named the coordinator. But I would be shocked if it wasn't heavily Ryan Day influence. And on Saturdays, Ryan Day called game.
Yeah, and if Ryan Day's being honest and open with Brian Hartline, he's letting him know that, and he's letting him know you will eventually be, if you perform, will eventually be the full-fledged offensive coordinator here. But we are easing you into the position. It's your position. But yes, we are going to have a lot of input until you prove it.
So breaking a new. So it all goes back to someone said that they had Ohio State as their preseason number one. Which, hey, listen, it's preseason and going off of track records, Ohio State's going to have an excellent team. Most likely, has a really good chance to win the Big Ten. Therefore, has a really good chance to be number one. But my point is, Julian saying with mixed reviews. Regardless, even with great reviews coming out of the off season, having your quarterback, a first time quarterback, especially a redshirt freshman, right? Redshirt freshman quarterback coming in to call play, second year in college, first year starting with maybe some uncertainty on calling plays, because it's not going to be seamless either way, because Ryan Day is either used to calling the plays or not calling the plays. So now it's going to be I'm assuming Chip Kelly did the vast majority of the play calling. I mean, without a doubt, they wouldn't bring him in for that. So this is going to be something new also for Ryan Day. So I would just say, Ohio State fans, you might want to temper your expectations for how good this offense will be going into the season. Great receivers, insane level receivers. But I'll tell you as a USC fan, having great receivers doesn't always translate to having a great offense that runs smoothly.
You're asking the impossible, Tim, for Ohio State fans to temper their expectations. No,
well, I mean, Fresno State fans are the same way. That's why it's called a fanatic. You have to live and love your team and sometimes throw some reason out the window in order to have fun in the offseason. So.
Yeah, and it's one reason why I toyed with a 9-3 prediction for Ohio State. But what we're going to do, we're going to do a big live stream workshop the week of week 0, Tim. We're going to go through the entire schedule, and I'm just going to go game by game, and I'm going to pick every game. We're going to add it up as it goes throughout the season. We'll see where we land. Yeah, that I'll be here for that for sure. Again, I say that, and then you watch Julian Sayin comes out, and sometime in October, he's the lead for the Heisman Trophy. Anything could happen. I'm just saying, all things being equal, if you want to just keep it just flat and try to be as objective as possible, it's a tough ask for this offense this year. And it's funny, you say Ohio State's offense is taking a step back. That's not really a knock, because even if you put one hand behind Ohio State's offense's back over the past, I don't know, decade, what's that going to look like? It's always going to be superior to the vast majority of the teams in the Big Ten anyway. CJ Stroud had never thrown a collegiate pass his first year.
You heard it here first. Mark Rogers is saying that Julian Sayin is the next Stroud. All right.
Justin Fields had never thrown a meaningful pass in college.
There you go. See? It's going to happen. Julian Sayin's going to take them to an 11-win season this year. 11-1 Buckeyes right now, because he's going to come out firing. You never know. That's
the standard right there. You talk about expectations and standard. I ran this math in my head the other night when we were talking about whatever. 20 regular seasons, last 20 regular seasons, 20 regular season losses. What does that average to? You don't have to be a mathematician. 11-1.
Carry the one, average. Cross out that. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I will say this. It was not a 20-year run, but it was a nice solid 9-year run. And USC fans were complaining we were winning Rose Bowls by multiple touchdowns. I'm just saying, and it might just be a hiccup, but odds are great and momentum is great and everything's showing. I'm just saying it really doesn't mean anything until they strap it on and put on. But if you're an Ohio State fan, death, taxes, and a 10-win season, you're probably safe betting on that every time of year. So, all right, Mark, I'm going to harass people in the chat. Just want to call, say hello.
Appreciate it. Have a good time in Vegas.
Thanks.
We will keep it rolling. And again, we were expecting Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. Let me check my text messages here. So pardon me real quick here. We'll see. Okay. Yes. So our second guest was not able to make it. We also have some programming changes otherwise. I see. We'll get to those after the show, apparently. Very good. All right. So a couple programming notes here. Stephen M. Smith of the Bama Standard not able to show up, and Leanne Herring not able to show up tonight for the On the Move show. So we will nix that. Maybe Thursday night, maybe Friday night. We shall see. All right. So a bit of a shortened show, possibly. We do have the link there in the chat if you would like to call. We've got a call coming in from guess who? Caden.
Mark, how you doing this afternoon, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
You know what? I got off work early today, and I saw you were going live. I figured I'd call in, and I heard Tim Prangley talking about, or I should say, excuse me, Timmy Prangley talking about my Buckeyes. And Timmy, I'll give you credit for what you said, but you're forgetting one slight detail of Ohio State's team. You forgot our defense. Now, everybody's been asking about OSU's defense, and I say this year Ohio State's defense is going to step up their A game, especially this year after winning the national championship. And looking on OSU's social media page, if you don't follow at the Ohio State football, they're looking pretty good right now as far as the defensive line is concerned and the linebackers and that secondary. So I feel like the Texas game is going to be really where that defense will start showing what they've got, in the tank. And as far as Brian Hartline as the offensive coordinator, and then the Virginia Tech coordinator coming to assist Brian Hartline, I feel like this is kind of a match for Brian Hartline, so then they can really start getting that offense up and really going. Really let Ohio State's offense flourish. Be able to secure the offensive line, being able to let Julian Sayah make the passes that he needs to Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and soon to be Chris Henry Jr. So I'm pretty confident in what I saw in Ohio State in the last month. So I'm pretty confident.
And you have reason to be confident, but Tim also and others have reason to bring legitimate questions to the forefront, like inexperienced quarterback, replacing the best backfield in college football, and of course the offensive coordinator. That was most of our discussion, and that's legitimate as well because Brian Hartline has never done the job before.
Well, and I know people are questioning, Brian Hartline's ability, although he's been the wide receivers coach for as long as he has. But I feel like this is like where in his career as the offensive coordinator, this is where really things are going to shoot off for Ohio State. And now I may sound like an idiot saying that, but, I don't care if anybody calls me an idiot on this show. Don't. And Julian saying, like, watching him at camp and watching him on film, I feel like he's mastering it, but we'll see as week one comes. And then when we play Texas, I'll just let their actions speak louder than their posts and etc. Like I said yesterday. But Mark, Tim Prangley also, I got a few things to say to him too. Hey Tim, you know how I've been talking about your Trojans for the last month? Yeah, you guys are owed a few receipts, and that's a $12 million ass whooping courtesy of Ohio State, since you guys have those last two wins against us. So that's going to be coming down the pipeline for you guys. Just
You want
saying,
me to
Mark.
help your argument just slightly, Caden?
By all means, Mark, go ahead.
Ohio State won the last matchup in the 2017 Cotton Bowl.
Well, I mean, still, Southern Cal wants to talk on social media saying, like, moving to the Big Ten or getting ready to play Ohio State anytime. You know what? It's still owed. We still owe them a few receipts, but
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I'm saying, and that receipt is coming in $18 million ass whooping courtesy of Ohio State's team. And that's all I got to say about Tim Prangley as far as he's concerned about that.
Well, that's going to have to wait a year. They're not playing this year.
Listen, I don't mind waiting a year, Mark, because when we do play them at home, it's going to feel real damn sweet. Real damn sweet. And not only do we play Southern Cal next year, we play Alabama in 27-28. And I told Jackson Johnson, we owe them a receipt of an ass whooping. Oh, and I'm going to enjoy when we go down to Tuscaloosa and when they come up to Columbus, when they get their ass whooped by my boys. So I'm pretty happy as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I understand your confidence, and Ohio State doesn't have to take a back seat to anyone when it comes to winning big football games and winning periods. I totally get your confidence. However, when you talk about your boys and their boy, we don't even know who's going to be playing at that point. You know, we're talking 2 years down the road. We don't know what these teams are going to look like. Now, we can be pretty confident that Ohio State's probably going to have one of the top 5 teams in the country because until further notice, that's what they produce. But we've got to think that Alabama is going to be somewhere close to that as well. Now, USC, a wild card.
Alabama, really? I have no confidence in Keelan Russell, nor Caleb DeBoer, nor Ty Simpson. I literally have said Caleb DeBoer is the most overrated coach so far. And people can disagree with me, but it's my opinion. And you know, ever since Coach Saban left Alabama and I heard the news of Caleb DeBoer going to be the head coach, I was like, really? I was like, yeah, he's probably going to go like 10-2 or 9-3. And so far, I was correct. But that's just me, Mark. But prove me wrong. But
We appreciate the call, Caden.
I know the super chat bet where everybody's like, if they donate $50.
Boom! Look at that.
See, all the Michigan fans hate me on this page because they know I was calling them out for the last month.
The Michigan fans. All right, yeah. Caden. As the old adage states, money talks. So we'll see you here sometime soon. Okay. Well, Blue Wolverine, thank you. Absolutely. I can be bought under these conditions if it does not involve in any way any kind of morality. If it does not compromise my morality, absolutely. You can get me to talk about anything on here. You can get me to shut down whatever caller. You can do all sorts of things. Absolutely. I had a caller or somebody in the chat, this was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that wanted me to get rid of, I believe it was the Michigan helmet. So the Michigan helmet was sitting back here, and they said, Mark, I'll give you $50 if you get rid of that Michigan helmet. I'm like, for how long? And he's like, forever. Get rid of the Michigan helmet. I'm like, $50? What? And then he said, how much would it cost? And I will get to the other super chat, Ryan. I appreciate it. He asked, how much is your price to get rid of the Michigan helmet permanently? And I said, well, first of all, we run a college football show. We like to consider it to be a legitimate college football show. Therefore, we are not getting rid of anybody's helmet permanently, even Michigan. We are not going to get rid of anyone's helmet permanently, number one. That's number one. Number two, okay, I will get rid of a Michigan helmet for $50 for one show. He wanted it thrown in the trash. And I said, you know what? I'll go through the whole skit of throwing it in the trash. You'll see me throw it in the trash. Then as soon as the show's over, I'm going to take it out of the trash. I'm going to put it back on the shelf. So 50 times however many shows we do would be the price for me to throw away any particular helmet, for example. And again, Blue Wolverine wants Caden off the air, $50. Unfortunately, YouTube gets 15 of that. 15, more than that, like 18 of that. So that's unfortunate. I will emphasize, like it says on the ticker down there, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. That's the most effective way to contribute to the show. But anyway, I do appreciate it, Blue Wolverine. So yes, I would have immediately, when I saw that, I would have immediately just cut him off. But I've been borderline rude to Caden enough that I didn't just want to, I wanted to at least let him know what was coming. And then he saw it anyway. So at that point, see ya. So yes, I can be bought if it involves nothing that's like going to harm my family or in any way compromise my moral values and beliefs. Otherwise, who cares? It's just business, right? All right. So Blue Wolverine, thank you for that. And Blue Wolverine's presence reminds me that we've got a watch party that we need to line up for August. So June watch party, Michigan over Ohio State 2021. July watch party, Michigan over Alabama 2024 Rose Bowl. That's only 2, but I'm starting to feel a trend. I can't quite identify it, but I'm starting to. So I'm going to have to determine in August, are we going to give the Michigan fans an option of selecting another game? Does that mean we're going to have another Michigan win on the table for our August watch party? Or can I put out to College Football Nation that watches us here at the Voice of College Football that you've got a challenge? That challenge is to unseat Michigan for our watch party. Because you know what I'm also envisioning is that the goal during the season is to do a watch party every week. So what we'll do is we'll take a vote on Sunday after all the big games on Saturday, Thursday through Saturday. Then we'll take a vote every Sunday, schedule our watch party for Monday night, Tuesday night, whenever. And folks, if you were going to make me sit here and watch every Michigan game again, because I'll watch most of those on Saturday anyway, or if I can anticipate that we're going to watch them on Tuesday night anyway, then I won't watch them on Saturday. And we're going to have the likes of Michigan against New Mexico as our watch party feature. Now, come on. Hopefully, we were going to vote for the best games of the weekend. If it becomes too much of a Michigan trend, we're going to have Tim bring all of his USC friends in here or something. Or we're going to have Minnie bring in the Nebraska contingent to outvote all the Michigan fans. That's what we're going to be reduced to. But Blue Wolverine, thank you so much for the contribution. The more effective way to do that possibly in the future would be to send the super chat right at the start of the show. And then then the call is never taken. We could do that. All right. We've had shows, Tim would know this, that at one point during the history of this channel and this show, through its various iterations, I had too many calls. I couldn't take enough calls, and I used to just take them on my phone. Boom, just hold the phone up to the mic. That's how I first did it. I was like, okay, people want to call. I'm going to set up a number. People thought they were actually calling my phone number. But anyway, and I would hold it up to the mic, and that's how we did it. And I would get done with 3-4 hour live streams, and we'd still have like 7 people waiting. And I was like, okay. But now I go through shows, and I've got like Caden calling. And then people complain that he called. Well, he's the only person that called. All right. So thank you for that super chat. Iowa, Nebraska replay. So we're talking about last year's game. That's going to put us all to sleep. Okay, we could try that, Gregory. The Iowa, Nebraska replay from last year. That may be one of the choices now that I go with. I got to be fair to the Michigan fans and actually play. I could shut this off. I could end this by not giving any Michigan games a place in the poll. We can eliminate all Michigan games, but I want it honestly to be won by another fan base. So we got about 500 votes last time, something like that, 550. And the Michigan game won by a healthy margin. So hopefully we can do better. DeReal, bring some more SEC fans in here. Because I have taken up for the SEC recently in these little bouts with the Big Ten. The most recent one is that the Big Ten is, I understand them taking a stand in terms of this playoff positioning. But my goodness, it's ridiculous to go into a college football season or any sports season and dictate that this conference gets 4 spots, this conference gets 4, you know the deal, 2 and 2 and 1. That's just dumb. If that wins out, the 4-4-2-2-1-3 model, if that wins out, then I would like to hear whoever is going to address the media, whoever is going to be the communications representative for college football, to explain why that was determined, what that is telling us. Because we know what it's telling us, that the Big Ten and the SEC are better than the other two, and they make more money and they rule the sport, therefore they can hold the other two down. But that has nothing to do with fair competition. And that is not a good look for college football. It's not a good message to send to college football nation. So I would love to hear the spin job if that is the model that wins. The one that should win is 5+11. I am siding with Greg Sankey in the SEC here. That should be the model, 5+11. And Brett Yormark, even though Brett Yormark knows that he would rather have 2 teams in for sure than just one, and then probably would get left out of having a second team more times than not. Again, it's difficult for us to project the future because the leagues are so different than they were in the past. If the leagues had not changed, believe me, I'd be running all sorts of models to show, well, this is what this would do, and this was what this format would look like, because we could run it past the last 10 or 15 years. But when 4 schools leave the Pac-12 and implode the league and they join the Big Ten, and 2 of them are powerhouses, and really a third one has the potential to be, meaning Washington, you could twist USC, Washington, whichever. 3 of them have the capability of competing for championships. And then, of course, Oklahoma and Texas leave the Big 12 and go to the SEC. We've completely changed the map on the power structure in the sport to give the 2 best leagues and the 2 most powerful leagues 5 excellent programs, and UCLA. So the 5-11 is the way to go. And it pains me to say that, because I am entrusting the committee to get the job done. But they've gotten it done for 11 years. I have no real issue with their playoff selections for 11 years. I have an issue with what and how they have defended their selections. And they've made a lot of missteps leading up to the final vote, leading up to the final selections, like in the penultimate week or the week before that. They've made some really weird moves that don't make sense. But when you get to the final gun and they got to make those selections, 2014, they ran into an issue with Baylor and Texas TCU against Ohio State, of course, but they made the right decision. They took the best team. They took the team that eventually won the national championship. And even if they didn't, they won the Big Ten in a Big Ten championship game. We've had TCU people on here. I don't know that I've ever had at the time, we did have a Big 12 show. And so we had a Baylor guy that would come on here and argue with me about that those two teams deserved it more than Ohio State. No, Ohio State played in a conference championship game. And then we get to a couple seasons later, and the committee started to bring this narrative of, well, we're selecting the best teams. At some point around 2016, that's when when they made that Ohio State selection over Penn State, even though Penn State won the game and won the Big Ten championship, they put Ohio State in. And for the first time, we got this narrative of, well, we're selecting the best teams. Oh, we never heard that before. This is our third year in this. We've not heard that before, selecting the best teams. So we've heard about conference championships, data points, because that worked well for the first year because they wanted Ohio State in. So they said, well, they won a conference championship game. So that's an extra data point. And they are the conference champion, not a split conference champion. So that worked well that year. And then 2 years later, we get to best team. We're selecting the best teams. And Ohio State's better than Penn State. Well, the year before, Ohio State was better than just about everyone, but they didn't make the playoff. And it just went on and on with these narratives changing all the time. Or as I like to say, the narratives never changed. They just had like a whiteboard with like 10 bullet point narratives, arguments, and they just applied them differently depending on the circumstance, depending on the team. They didn't make up new ones. They were consistent in that they used the same list, but they just ignored certain ones and applied certain ones depending on the circumstance and the situation. But I got to admit, except for I would have taken Penn State over Ohio State in 2016. Yes, hear me out. I'm Mr. Bias, right? I'm Mr. Homer. No, I would have taken Penn State over Ohio State. There's actually a video on this channel that says that in 2016. And then in 2018, Notre Dame had no business being in the Notre Dame situation, being in no conference, screwed everything up. So 2018 was kind of screwed up. And 2019, if they would have gone with the best team, this is where they backtracked again. Because if you go with the best team, then you put Alabama in the playoff in 2019. You yank Oklahoma. They were not the fourth best team in the country. We all could see that. So they just kind of went back and forth. But they generally, more than generally, they always took the teams that earned it. The teams that made it earned it. And the fifth team that got left out had an argument. I made that argument many times, but it was never an egregious error by any stretch. The playoff committee has not made any egregious errors. So 5 plus 11 is the way to go within this structure. If it was me, if I was the commissioner, we would have an objective system. We would get rid of the committee. We would wave goodbye to the committee. Get rid of those people. We don't need you. We will have an objective system. But if we're going to have a committee that has done a reputable job for 11 seasons, then 5 plus 11. I don't know how in the world I would love to have can somebody get me a one-on-one with Tony Petiti? Can we get Tony Petiti on here to discuss this asinine 442213? Can we get Tony Petiti on here? I would love to grill him on that. Which at this point, I've probably answered this super chat, but we do want to get Ryan's comment up here. Ryan, thank you so much for the contribution. We appreciate you. It's always good to hear from you. Big Ten fans, Big Ten haters, don't drink the SEC's Kool-Aid. The Monty Show, what is that? Has even said, is that like Monty Hall? The Monty Show has even said that there's only one conference that benefits from the 5+11. That's the SEC. Don't come crying to the Big Ten when the SEC and ESPN screw the Big 12. Okay. When we look at 2024, it's not clear cut in regards to how the committee jumped in bed with either side here, because what was the final result? The final result was that despite better resumes, the committee actually selected a pretty poor SMU resume. Who did SMU beat? Louisville. SMU's best win. Louisville, right? Best win. SMU. Louisville. Lost to BYU. If anyone's got a gripe, it's BYU. They were 10-2. They had virtually the same record as SMU, and they beat them head to head. Did SMU, if you're looking at resumes versus the three teams from the Big Ten or the SEC, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Alabama, they all had substantially better resumes than SMU. And we're only one game. Well, okay. 2 games, and that's why SMU made it. SMU was 2 games ahead going into the ACC championship game. So they were 11-1. And then the committee came out with this. Again, I understand they're kind of boxed into a situation here in evaluating conference championship games. But to say we are not taking conference championship games into consideration at all is kind of dumb. It's really dumb. SMU on that night of the ACC championship game was playing the best team that they were going to play all season. Clemson, BYU. And you're not going to evaluate that game? And they're on the border line of a playoff position? Okay, that's kind of a stupid way to run the sport, that we've got championship games that don't count. They count for one team. They count for the final result. Otherwise, Clemson doesn't make the playoff. So the ACC championship game counts for the winner because otherwise they would not be a playoff team. But it does not count for. So how do you evaluate a football game on one side but not the other? And you don't even know which side you're evaluating until the game's over. It makes no sense. But the 5-11, yes, Ryan, if your assumption, and you have evidence there, I'm not saying you don't have any evidence that the SEC will get its way and that ESPN will get its way and they will bully SEC teams into the playoff. I'm just saying we've only been in this for 1 year, and the committee went bad resume SMU, bad resume Indiana over better resumes Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. Now 11-1 versus 9-3. Had those been 1 game gaps, then it's anybody's guess. I'm thinking that South Carolina was the most impressive team to the committee going down the stretch. Once they kicked it into gear, South Carolina was mighty impressive. However, they had the issue that they lost to both Alabama and Ole Miss, so they had to be behind at the end of the line of those 3, even though they were probably the better team and the most impressive team of those 3. By the end of the season, they had to wait. They were in a log jam behind those 2. The 5-11 is the best way to go if we're going to have a committee involved. I should dust off as it starts to pour down rain. I should dust off a video that I posted. Oh man, this is like 5 years ago because I don't think anything's changed. There's a way to do it objectively. Just have an objective system, just like professional sports. They select the playoff teams. The system selects the teams. And we know exactly what these teams have to do going into the playoff to achieve playoff status. Now, I will say that everybody is trying to fix the playoff without fixing what is most important. Todd is not confident in the committee. So I don't know if you heard my spiel, Todd, but I'll basically sum it up this way. I'm not necessarily that confident in the committee either. However, we've been through this for 11 years and they've not made any egregious errors. They have never selected a team to make the playoff where there was a team left out that had a much better, much clearer argument to make the playoff. They've had to break ties. Ohio State, Baylor, TCU in 2014. They had to break a tie. 2015 was pretty clear cut. 2016, Ohio State, Penn State had to break a tie. Meaning they had to make a decision. They couldn't put 6 teams in. They couldn't put 5 teams in. They had to make a decision. And their decision was never egregiously bad. It wasn't even much worse than 50-50. Like, this is a toss-up. I don't like the committee either. But they haven't messed it up. They have not messed it up. Now, we will have to see this season whether, well, if we ever get to this 5-11, whether the SEC is going to get jammed down everyone's throats. I would not be surprised. But even in the 4-team playoff, which conference got the most teams in? It's not even close. During the 4-team playoff, during those 10 years, the SEC. The SEC got a team in every year, so that's 10. And then in 2017, '21, okay, 2 years they got 2 in. Did I miss something there? 2 years they got 2 in, 2017 and 2021. So they got 12 teams in 10 years. Well, the Big Ten missed in 2017, 18. Two years. So the Big Ten got 8 in. The SEC got 12 in. The ACC got Clemson 5 in a row, and that's it. So the ACC only got 5 in, 2015 through 20. That's 6 years, and never got anyone else in. And then and of course it should have been Florida State. The Big 12 got Oklahoma in 2015, 17, 18, 19. Oklahoma 4 times, Texas once. That's 5. So 12, 8, 6, 5 out of the 4 conferences that still remain. And of course, the Pac-12 only got in 2. Oregon 2014, Washington 2016. So 12, 8, 6, 5, 2. So the SEC had an advantage because they got the most teams in. But you can't go to any one of those situations and say that team got elevated artificially. They earned it. They earned it. And then they performed in the playoff. All right. All right, folks. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. We've got another great stellar lineup for Thursday with a number of SEC media folks, and also on Friday. So we've got the Miami show lined up for 7 Eastern. We will see you then. Until next time.